For number 30, we are supposed to find the number and type of solutions here. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. You've got three options. If that number is positive, you have two real. If that number is negative, you have to have two imaginary. And if that number turns out to be 0, you have one real solution. So we just have to plug the numbers in and figure it out. So b squared, we need negative 5 squared, 4 times 3 times 6. So here I've got 25 minus, let's see, 4 times 3 times 6 is going to give us 72. So it honestly doesn't matter what the number is, it just matters whether it's positive, negative, or 0. In this case it's negative 47, so if it's negative, I would have two imaginary solutions. For number 37, here's the height of a ball after it's thrown up in the air. H is the height, T is the time. How long does it take for the ball to hit the ground? If your ball is going to hit the ground, that means the height is 0. So you're solving the equation with a 0 plugged in here. All you want to do is go ahead and do the quadratic formula. That's not going to be something I want to try to factor because of the decimal there. So I'm going to do opposite of b, plus or minus the square root. Let me just grab my calculator here and try not to get a glare on it for you guys. So my b squared would be 30 squared minus 4 times a, negative 4.9, times c, which is 3. So that's under the square root, so I'm just going to type that 958.8 all over 2a. 2 times negative 4.9 is negative 9.8. Okay, now to the nearest tenth, I'm not trying to break this radical down. We're going to write down to the nearest tenth what we're going to get here. I can't seem to learn my lesson about the glare. We're going to have to do it on this side. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and type negative 30 plus the square root of 958.8, and I'm going to divide that by negative 9.8. Now, I can see right there, I got negative 0.098. I know it says to the nearest tenth, but honestly, I'm not going to pick that answer because t represents time, and you can't have a negative time. So we're not going to pick that answer anyway. So I'm going to do negative 30 minus the square root 958.8, hit equals, and then I'm going to divide that by negative 9.8. That'll be positive to the nearest tenth, 6.2. So my answer here, 6.2 seconds, since the time is in seconds. Okay, solve the equation. We're going to try to get x by itself here as fast as possible. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Now, I am not going to FOIL this out. This is negative 392. Don't distribute the 8. I'm just going to get those parentheses alone real quick. If you divide negative 392 by negative 8, this is going to give me x plus 5 squared is equal to, those negatives cancel out, the 49. Don't FOIL. This is a good place for us to be in. What we're going to do, we're going to take the square root, and then I can just cancel those parentheses out. So x plus 5. Now, don't forget, if you introduced a square root into a problem, which I did here to solve, you have two possibilities. It could be 7 or negative 7. Right? So if I want to get x totally alone, I would subtract 5 to the other side. If I do negative 5 plus 7, one of my answers is 2. Negative 5 minus 7, the other answer is negative 12. Says simplify and classify by degree and number of terms. So I'm going to go ahead, little distributive property here. And so I got negative 5x squared, negative 5 times negative 6 turns into positive 30. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. I'm just going to go through here with a 3. 3x squared, 3 times negative 9x would be negative 27x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Then we're just combining like terms here. Negative 5x squared, 3x squared, negative 2x squared. 30x minus 27x would be a 3. And -5, -6 is -11. By the degree, this is a second power x to the second, so this is called quadratic. And I have 1, 2, 3 terms, so trinomial for the name here. Number 40, set up and solve a system of equations for the situation. Maria is selling tickets for a concert. Student tickets are 5, adult tickets are 8. She sold $1,145 worth of tickets. The number of adult tickets was 4 more than twice the number of student tickets. Oh my gosh, we got a lot going on here. Okay, let me let X be student tickets. I'm going to let Y be the adult tickets. Let's do one equation that deals with the cost. So student tickets are $5 each, adult tickets are $8 each, and I'm going to set that equal to the total amount that she made. That's the $1,145. Okay, let's set up a second equation here. The number of adult tickets sold was 4 more than twice the number of student tickets. Okay, so remember I let Y be my adult tickets. 4 more than would be 4 plus twice the number of student tickets. So I'd set it up like that. And then if it was me, if I'm solving this system, this is set up really nicely to try to use substitution in place of Y. I'm going to put this 4 plus 2x. And if I do that, sub that in, I'm creating an equation that only has one variable. So instead of 8y, I do 8 times what y is equal to, which is 4 plus 2x. We'll distributive property here. And combine like terms, I got 21x plus 32 is this 1145. Okay, so let me subtract the 32. I get 21x, 1,113, and I'm going to divide that by 21. So x is 53. We sold 53, whoa, sorry, not on the screen, 53 student tickets. And then all you have to do is plug that back in to figure out your adult tickets. I would say it's probably easier to plug it into the second equation, a little less work. 4 plus 2 times 53. This is 4 plus 106. So we're going to get 110 for our adult tickets. So 110 adult tickets, 53 student tickets. 41 says explain in general how you would determine from a graph, or sorry, from a given graph if the graph represented a function. Okay, so if I'm a function, has to pass the vertical line test. So if I was given a graph, here, for example, we could just use the one in 44 as a little example because it's on the screen. So if I slid my pencil across this graph, I'm only allowed to touch one point at any vertical line I could draw. That's why we have people use a pencil or pen to kind of slide across, because that kind of mimics a vertical line. So as long as I only touch one point the whole time I'm sliding across there, that should be a function. If you touch more than one point, then you're not going to be a function. Alright, so you guys can see I moved my paper here real quick. Now, continuing on with that question, it says, is this a function? Well, heck no. I'm touching 2 points with all these, any vertical line I'm going to go through here, so this is not a function. The question underneath asks us for the domain and range, though. So just because I'm not a function doesn't mean I can't have a domain and a range. So domain describes your possible x values, range describes your possible y values. So domain is left to right. So I'm seeing these arrows here. These are pointing to the left forever. These are pointing to the right forever. So as I was sliding across from left to right, I would always be touching, in this case, 2 points on this graph, but we would always be touching a point on the graph here. So the domain is just going to be from negative infinity to infinity, because we're going to touch all the values of x. Now for the range here, this points down forever. So whenever I do the range, I just want to approach from the bottom. So I'm always touching part of the graph until I get to this point, which is -1, -1. Now, this range is based on, or any range is based on y values. So this is going down to -infinity, but I'm going to have a little place where it stops at -1, like right here. Then there's a little gap in the graph, so I don't have any points right there, but if I keep sliding my pencil up, I do start to touch the graph again when I get to this one. So there's a little gap where I don't have any points, but starting at +1 and going up to infinity, I have another portion of the range. So this range, I'm going to put union. Now, this one starts, y value right here is +1, and then the rest of the graph goes up forever. So you'll cover all the rest of the y values all the way up. For 42, we're going to solve for x. First thing I'm going to do is take and notice that each of these terms is divisible by x, so I'm going to take that out in front. Now, if you can factor what we got left over, I got to multiply to get -42, add to get -1. If you guys think about that for a second, I know you'll come up with these numbers. This would be -7 and +6. Those will multiply to get you -42, but add to get you -1. Once you're there, it's so much easier to see the answers. 3 things multiplied together to give you 0. If x was 0, that would wipe the whole thing out. Here, if it was 7, and here if it was -6. So this is x to the third. I have 3 answers. I can get all 3 of them by doing the factoring. For number 43, all this means is we're going to plug in a -2 everywhere we see an x. So 8 times -2 is -16. Subtract 3 from that. -19 is going to be my answer. And then I got one more on this page. Says state the vertex and axis of symmetry. Okay, real quick. Vertex is just going to be your highest or lowest point here. This is a maximum. It's going to be the point 42. Axis of symmetry goes through the very middle of your parabola and creates symmetry on either side. If we were to fold it in half, it's always a vertical line, so it's always x equals, vertexal is how I remember that. All these x coordinates are 4, and it should just match the x coordinate of your vertex. For number 45 here, we're going to see how many solutions this system has. Best advice here, let's just graph these two things. That first one is a parabola, x squared minus 2x minus 8, and then just y equals -9. So I'm just going to put that on the graph there. And we're trying to figure out how many points these two things have in common. And it looks like it is just going to be the vertex of the graph there. So this is just going to have 1 point in common. So how many solutions? I'm just going to say 1. For number 46, evaluate the piecewise function. So you got to figure out which piece to plug it into. So here it says f is 2. This first piece is less than or equal to 2. So since it's equal to, that's the piece I'm going to plug it in, piece number 1. And all I do there is everywhere I see an x in that first piece, I'm just going to replace it with a 2. This would become 0 squared minus 2, and that's just going to simplify to be -2. Plug in 5, I got to figure out which piece x would be 5 in, and that's going to be this one at the bottom, the greater than or equal to. Since it's or equal to, we're going to plug it in here. So 2 times 5 minus 12. That's going to give me 10 minus 12, so -2 there. 4 is between the 2 and the 5, so that's going to go into the second piece. This is actually nice. This would just be a horizontal line on a graph, but there's no plug in here. It's just going to be equal to that value between 2 and 5, so just go ahead and write -2. And then -3, which piece would that fall into? That is a number less than or equal to the 2 up here, so it's going to go into the first piece. So I'm going to do -3 minus 2 squared minus 2, be -5 squared minus 2, positive 25 minus 2, so that should be 23. For number 47, composition function. This means I'm going to plug in the g of x function to the f of x function. So g of x is x squared plus 4. In your f of x function, everywhere you see an x, you replace it with that expression. Now, a little distributive property here. This is 2x squared plus 8 plus 1, and then we're just combining like terms. Simplified should be 2x squared plus 9. For number 48, we're going to evaluate a piecewise function from a graph. So these values are the x values that you're plugging in here. So f of 5, so come find 5 on your x-axis, and there's that point right there, and you're just going to tell me the corresponding y-coordinate. So right there, that would actually just be 0. F of 4, if I come over here to 4, now this is an open circle, so not that point, so I'm going to come up here where it's filled in. So f of 4 is going to be this point right here, which looks like it's 4, 5, so I want the y-coordinate, that's going to be 5. F of 0, here's 0 for my x value, come up here, the point that's filled in is the one I want to select, so 0, 3 is the point, 3 is the corresponding y-coordinate, and negative 6, so over here my x value of negative 6, if I come up and meet the graph, that's the point, negative 6, 7, so if I'm evaluating that, I want the y value, which is going to be the 7.